Okay, welcome to Fork in the Road. This is your channel for transformation. My name is Matthew Tait, and today I have a very special guest, Leigh Hampson. Welcome, Leigh.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
So I've got Leigh on. He's a very exciting guest for me because he is a great person for that fork in the road where you make that decision to move to a better life. He has a company called Addiction Release Coaching, and he's such an exciting guest to have on the show. He's a presenter, a coach, a mentor with Addiction Release Coaching. As the name suggests, he helps people release addiction. But on top of that, Leigh also is working in the community services field for the last 20 odd years in his 40s, which is a huge part of his life. So it's exciting to have him here today. So all this work that Leigh is doing is basically making a difference in the community. So he's the perfect person to have on the show. He's helping people meet that fork in the road. So welcome, Leigh.
Thank you.
So I suppose if you've got an addiction, the reason why we're doing this interview today is because Leigh can help you move on. Leigh's basically we're going to share Leigh's story, and that story is going to help you understand the right path to get through. So I highly recommend you listen to Leigh's story today and what he does in his daily work. So Leigh is the right path if you've hit that fork in the road. So Leigh, I guess we'd start with your company and your coaching and your mentoring programs in addiction release. What can you tell me about that program?
Well, okay, in particular, when there's an addict who's got to a point, a lot of people, my clients have verbalised to me that they wouldn't go to somebody who's just a textbook learner because they don't get it.
Yep.
You can do theories, you can do textbook, but until you've lived it, which I had made some choices that weren't the best in hindsight, but they were the best I had at the time, like many addicts out there. It's not that they're going, oh yeah, I'll wake up one morning and I think I'm going to be an addict. It's like, you'll find with most addicts, if not all, there's been a trauma, right? And they, with the limited resources they had at the time, they made a decision and they wanted to take off some of the edges because they're often, like the people that I've dealt with have been intelligent people who are quite sensitive, who are having difficulty coping with emotions, and when you hear some of the stories, which there's some pretty horrific stuff that happens to a lot of people. Like, whether you're talking about sexual abuse, beatings, shootings, people being murdered, that's not some of the nicest elements in life.
No.
And it's one thing when people in particular go, oh, drugs are bad, as they're sitting there with a beer in their hand and a cigarette in the other, and their drug use is okay, but they want to demonise somebody else. And it's not just... It's too easy to go, oh, that addict. No, that person who has an addiction problem. Because they are not their addiction. Right. They're an individual who's used a means to get through.
Right, yeah. So basically people have gone through some trauma, ended up in this place where they've used drugs to help cope with life because they can't handle that trauma with no other way out.
Yeah, and three of the main reasons that people use drugs are, okay, one will be exploration, so testing boundaries. Two, performance, to go up or down. And then three, it's when there's been a physical or psychological trauma. And that's quite often where you'll find that the addiction sets in and it differentiates between somebody who may use a drug versus somebody who develops a habit.
Right, okay. So it's getting those definitions understood nice and clearly. So the problems that they're encountering, obviously, once they get stuck in that addiction phase, what are some of the issues that come to you through your doors?
Well, whether the people are going to end up getting locked up, they may be losing their kids, their house, their wife. And if you go along that path of addiction for long enough, eventually there will be run-ins with the law because it's on the fringes, most of it. But also there are people who have addictions, and I'll frame addiction first.
Okay, sure.
Technically, I'll say addiction is obsessive, compulsive usage of a chemical or behaviour despite the adverse outcome.
Right.
So when you're waking up in the morning and it's a preference to poison yourself almost to a point of death, and that's seen as success, kids don't wake up going, oh, I think I'm going to be a fireman, I think I'm going to be a nurse, oh, I think I'm going to be a junkie.
Of course not, yeah.
Right? That's the reality of it. And a lot of the things, when you hear of people who, okay, one of the young people that I worked with at one stage, he was a 15-year-old boy, and for his 15th birthday, his dad shot him up with heroin.
What great leadership.
His father,
Unbelievable.
I'm not justifying his behaviour, but maybe his father didn't know any better. So at one stage, you've got to break the cycle, otherwise it continues.
Yeah, hit that fork in the road and
Definitely.
you want that better life. So I guess that's the other question then is, you've hit that fork in the road, you get addicted to the drug, you're stuck with the drug, and then there's something happens that leverages you to say, I've had enough, I want to stop, and they come to you. Like, what's that sort of, their fork in the road, let's call it?
Okay. Well, quite often you'll find that people will take the drugs for a while and naturally tolerance sets in. So the initial drug, or the amount they were using, is ineffective to keep it down.
Right.
So it's a short-term strategy for a long-term problem, and it's symptomatic of the problem. It's not the actual core problem. So if you don't address what lies beneath it, which is why they went to the strategy in the first place, it will resurface.
Right. Wow. So it resurfaces, and so as far as making the decision to shift out of that, like, do you find that they can, like, is there something happens in their life that changes them?
Well, it can be that they watch a partner die in front of them, or a friend. They can lose their kids. Okay, their business. It depends. Different people have different pain points, and it's like, how much pain? What I say, how much pain are you willing to put up with?
Right.
Like, for me personally, the first time I tried to overcome things, and I didn't just use one drug. If I used my usage in the past, if I tried to do that now, I wouldn't be waking up. I would not be waking up.
Right.
There's no doubts there. And
Wow.
it's almost, while I didn't think I could do it at first, there was this point, and I tried a few times. But I thought I had a little one on the way, and I was that stuffed that I thought, no child deserves this. No child deserves this. Look, I was a mess. And it's like, I've made this choice. It wasn't the most desirable choice. And if I'm making a choice to bring a child into the world, it's up to me to clean up this mess. And it didn't work at first. There was, like, I went into rehab, but as I said, I hadn't addressed what was the root cause of the problem.
Right.
And within a space of, from memory, it was 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, the lady who I was with, I went to rehabilitation. I can't remember the first 3 days that they were trying to give me drugs, and my argument was, no, why would I swap your drugs, my drugs for your drugs? And when we look at pharmaceutical drugs, whereas they have a place in the short term to get out of it and stop some of the harms that we may have built up, long term they can be just as problematic. And if we look at legal drugs, they kill more people,
Yeah, absolutely.
right, than all the illegal drugs put together. So it's like just a choice of different drug dealers, and one's sanctioned by the government, one isn't. It doesn't necessarily make them any better because, okay, morphine. Quite often a lot of people who get onto heroin, it might be that they have a trauma and then they have withdrawals.
And they need to patch that fix up, and catch up and get that feeling back, whatever that might be.
Yeah, or numb it.
Or numb it, right?
Because
the trauma behind it.
Yeah, well, okay. For instance, if there's a post-traumatic thing, so there's going to be, okay, the visual, and there's going to be a feeling attached to that emotion. And when until that's cleared up, quite often it's scary to face getting past that. And the other thing is a lot of people will tell you that they'll refer to the drugs as their friend or the thing that got them through.
That's their friend.
It's their chemical padding.
Yeah.
It is.
Chemical padding, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and it softens some of the sharp edges on the world.
Yeah.
Until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't and gives you more sharp edges.
Well, it keeps building up and there's a landslide that's eventually going to come down the hill.
Yeah, wow, that's a great metaphor for it. So, in your addiction coaching, someone shows up, they've gone through this path with this avalanche that's coming down on them after 10 years more. So where do you start with someone who is coming to you with all of that in the background?
At the start.
Yeah.
No.
At the start, well, yeah.
Well, what I will quite often do is find out what their reasons are to get beyond that, because unless their reasons big enough, chances are, look, some people can get addicted to rehab because they get attention, they get off the drugs in the short term, so then therefore their tolerance drops.
Okay.
And then they can go back out and use because they're afraid of dealing with the problem.
Right. So it's So it's that. So they create a loop for themselves where they keep going back in for more treatment. They go back out, they try again, they go back in, get clean. It's like a vicious.
Very much so,
cycle.
and it's very individual.
Yeah.
Right. There are certain common links, but also it's very individual. What brought the person down the path in the first place? What needs to be addressed? What's changed? What are they going to get by changing?
Right.
And there's a whole lot that works around it. And people can try and change themselves. And if they could do it, no doubt they would have already done it.
Yeah.
But the same thinking that created the problem is not the one that's going to resolve the problem.
Right.
So, okay, I have various techniques, which a lot of them I learned over a period of, as you shared, 20 odd years. Plus I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on learning, because if I hadn't, I'd be dead. Right? I got one night when I was out, I got assaulted. This is after I'd been to rehab. Landed on the concrete, I couldn't see out this side of my face, and I got a head injury. On the Wednesday that week I couldn't remember how to do my shoelaces up, and I was scared.
Yeah,
Then the following Friday, my car hit a pole, an EB Falcon, and I ripped it in half pretty much long ways, and it was estimated that hit the pole at between 220 to 260 kilometres an hour.
Wow.
Right? It wasn't that look, a lot of people say, I'm going to get off, and they honestly believe it, and then the families go, oh, they've just lied to me again. And they honestly really want to get off until that pain starts to creep in, and they're scared. And when you've had that padding, and you take away the padding, that safety net, like, okay, what's become normal, the new normal, right? Which getting addicted and poisoning yourself is not something that you're necessarily enjoying. It's just a preference to dealing with the reality.
So that reality is like something that's sitting in your mind, some sort of trauma. Like, it's all about healing that, right? So otherwise your mind doesn't feel safe to let go of the drugs. Is that right?
When I've got a young lady who's telling me that her father had raped her, right?
Yeah.
And then there was patterns with brothers and stuff doing the same thing. It's like, some of these things, there's layers of it. It's not just there's one clear way out. It's not black and white. And they're individuals, and it's teaching them how to unpack it in a safe fashion and show them that, okay, when they get to that fork and they're ready to make the choice, that they're scared. It's like, okay, there's darkness here.
Yeah.
I'll shine the torch. I'll lean against me if you need to, but we're going out of here, and we're going out of here for good. Because if you don't, eventually you're going to end up locked up, or getting a vertical tan, or you're going to be in a box, or getting burnt. Yeah. And that's where it leads. And look, inevitably that's going to happen, but not necessarily the lock-up, but the burnt or in, a box.
It's not a good place to end up, yeah.
Or, but, okay, what's the quality of life do you want in the meantime?
Yeah.
What do you really want in the meantime? Do you want to hang around with people who are ready to rip you off, or there's guns, violence, and basically quite volatile people who are hurting. Because only hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
If you know love, that's what you want to project out. But if you're full of anger, and quite often that anger is fear. There's a lot of these guys who are trying, and girls who are trying to be tough, who really, they're scared. They are scared. They are petrified.
Yeah.
Like even women. Like, I hang around with some quite volatile people at once stage in my life.
Yeah.
There were some beautiful people there, but I'll tell you what, you wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of them. And it got real when you're seeing on TV different people's being taken down, and you're watching sunrise in the morning and going, oh, this is a bit of a reality check, right?
People you know, places you've been, and they're on the TV, and
there's
a drug raid or something going on, or whatever it might be.
Or you see a TV show and you're going, bullshit, that's not how it happened.
Right.
Because a lot of the time they don't tell the full truth, because otherwise people end up dead.
Gotcha.
You don't, loose lips sink ships.
Yeah.
And basically, if you're a dog,
you're in trouble.
when I say a dog, that's somebody who informs or puts out information which can take people down.
Yep.
That's not cool. Well, that's why when people ask me about stories of clients, that's not my place. I will give very vague things, but when a client comes to me, that's a respect thing. Right? That is very much a sacred space. That is their space where they share. And some of the stuff they're sharing, they may not have shared it with anybody else ever. And I'm in a very privileged position for that person to want to trust me. How dare I ever even think about abusing it? That is not even an option. No way. Because those people, when they come in, they may be reaching out for the first time or the last time. And when I've had people on the other side who are saying that they're thinking about toppling themselves, do I want to be the straw that broke the camel's back? Hell no.
Yeah.
And chances are some people are going to kill themselves. That's the reality of it. What I will also say is that there's no judgment on that, but what if there's something better? What if they stop for a tick and somebody actually supports them in a way that they've never had support before? What they don't know what's on the other side of that, because it's been normal, for want of a word, in a very abnormal way.
Right. So that's powerful. I was just thinking about yourself in these sessions supporting people. So how do you look after your own mental health, absorbing all of those stories of people, you know, like if someone was to actually follow through, like that's a challenge for you as a practitioner, as a coach, as a mentor, or as someone who's guiding someone through that. It's a lot of responsibility, isn't it?
Look, I've been fortunate enough to have some great people believe in me, who've also taught me some skills. Right. From the time I was 15, I was helping out in needle exchanges. I've had friends who were close to me OD in front of me, unbelting on their chest before I'd learned first aid. We're waiting for the ambulance to come.
Just trying to keep them going until...
and there was a lot of violence. We discussed at one stage with one of my friends, there was, in a 12 to 18 month period, we lost 20 to 25 friends, and the oldest one was 21. And it was sort of...
That's big,
That was normalised. And one friend said to me, he says, I've lived in a war zone and didn't see that much. And but
wow.
It was a way of... I didn't think that. I thought, well, this is normal, because I didn't have anything different to compare it to. And you make it as normal as possible so you can keep going.
So you bring in your life experience and then the tools you've learnt to then help these people lift themselves up, give them the support, the belief that they never had from anybody until this point in time when they meet you.
Yeah, well, I don't jump down in the hole. My job is to actually lift somebody else up and sit there and support them when they're scared. When they want, like, okay, for instance, I've had somebody come in to me. Imagine this. you can't help me. Right?
How do you handle that?
You're exactly right. Why are you wasting my time and your money? Why don't you just get an 8-ball and get sweet puff, which is a crack pipe, and just burn it up till you sort of piss your kidneys down the drain and you can't get it up any longer.
Yeah.
That was bullshit, friend. I wouldn't recommend that everybody goes out with that approach, but this guy, he had in the back of his head, I'm shit, and the way he controlled it was to create something which would feed into the story so he could prove it. He wasn't shit, he was scared and he was screaming out for help.
Yeah.
He actually broke down into tears when I agreed with him. And you know what? I let him have that space to cry. I let him go through it, and then we came. I said, so what do you want that's going to be different, mate? Because if you want something different, and you're not willing to, everybody wants change, but not everybody's willing to make a change.
Yeah, it's true of everyone too,
Yeah, and it's like, it's not going to come over and just save you. The reality of it is that okay, if you don't ask for it, nobody's going to help you. If you sit there and talk crap, you're entitled to that. That can be your reality. If you want to stay in the hole, that's fine. It's not my job to make somebody wrong, any more than it is somebody walking with a crack pipe and say, I smoke crack, you need to smoke it. I respect other people's space, but when they're ready, I will show them how to get beyond it for good.
Right. So they're forking the road. This first part is, are they ready? And there's probably going to be a few stages in that getting ready to make the decision and move on.
Yeah, quite often people yo-yo.
Yeah.
Because they start to step out, then they get scared, and then they slide down, and this isn't unusual. But I say to people, like, as you know what Spotlight is, they sell material. One of the sayings I say to people are, if you want fluff, go to Spotlight. If you want results, come to me.
Right.
But if you want to talk shit, don't waste my time. I'll work with the people who are ready to do it, because you can lie to yourself, but I'm going to call you on your crap.
So you would have a fairly good crap filter, interpreting when they're talking real and when they're just giving you a story.
Yeah, well, as somebody who was an addict.
Yeah. That's the real challenge, isn't it?
I was somebody who was very good at manipulating. And we all manipulate in certain ways to have our needs met.
Of course.
Right?
We all do it,
We don't call it manipulation. We pretty it up and go, this is what I do because I need this. Okay, so should I justify that this is what I do? I'm going to come and knock over your house and beat the shit out of your mum because I need money to feed my habit? How does that work? And people sit there and they will look at, they go, drugs are bad. What I'll say is quite often the perception in society of what drugs are is very warped. They've got this idea that's fed by the media that it's somebody down the back lane, whereas they'll be at a barbecue. Somebody's had a gutful of grog, trips over, almost puts their head through a table. Oh, don't worry, that's just John. He does that. Whereas if somebody was at the same barbecue and tied off and put a syringe in their arm or wrapped up lines, they'd sit there and want to point the finger.
Socially unacceptable. Alcohol's acceptable and everything else is not.
Well, in our society, perfect example. What's wrong with you, mate? Why aren't you drinking?
That's right.
They don't go, what's wrong with you, mate? Why aren't you having any heroin?
Yeah. It's a cultural build-up, and then we fall into it, and we end up just following because we want to be accepted, we want to be part of a group, and the way it goes. And so you're saying that media perception is fueling sort of that, like creating a picture of a drug or someone who's addicted as some sort of evil, as opposed to a person who's just in pain that needs help.
A lot of the time, yeah. Because, okay, if you think about it, there's a lot more functional addicts that are behind closed doors who go to work, then they might get off their guts and then go to bed and then get up and go to work again. Right? There's a lot of people who are still hurting, but if they go to the bottle shop and get,
6-pack or 24-pack or whatever.
I was about to say, sometimes I was 12 short of a 6-pack. But that's condoned in our society.
It is, yeah.
Or you go to the chemist and you get, or just pop pills.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
The kid or the adult or the person who's not coping, it's easy when it hasn't got a face on it. When it ends up that it's somebody's mother, their father, their brother, their sister, that's when suddenly it's not, they're just an addict. The person isn't their behaviour. The person may have a behaviour, and it doesn't mean that we condone the behaviour. What I'll say is that we need to separate it because it's somebody who needs help. It's somebody who really needs help. They're screaming out for it.
Absolutely.
Because they're pushing it to the edge where they're almost killing themselves on a daily basis to cope.
That's and so I think we dehumanise people. I think it's the human condition to dehumanise other people and turn them into objects almost, and that's what's happening to someone who's addicted to anything. They're turned into something that they're a human being with feelings just like you, with emotions. They're all the same needs, except they're in a whole lot more pain than you are. That's the reason they're addicted.
And it's like, how much pain have they been taught to handle? What strategies have they learned?
And this is their strategy,
Yeah, and that's all that it is, because, okay, we celebrate consumerism, and people go, shopaholics, and that's okay. That has a chemical response in the brain, right? How many people have credit card problems? Then we've got the gamblers. A lot of that is charted when they're looking at games and blue screen addiction for eye readers and the sounds which cause responses. These are all well calculated, right? The lights, the placement, right? But then we celebrate workaholics. But what are they avoiding with their family? What are they avoiding beyond that?
Yeah, well, it's all about avoidance of something, of pain, or and then you get addicted to the feeling, and then you're in, and that's how it all triggers off. So I guess I'll bring now sort of the conversation to what you define as addiction. You're dealing with addicts, you're dealing with people who are trying to get out of the loop. What's your definition of addiction?
Well, as I said before, with the obsessive compulsive usage, despite adverse outcome. Okay, that's a mouthful. Obsessive.
So, in layman's terms, how would you bring that back?
I'll break it down the words. Obsessive, you're obsessed. When you're obsessed, you can't stop thinking about it. You become myopic and you just hone in. Right?
Sure.
Compulsive, you're compelled to go towards it. There's something that's driving you towards it, like you're being pushed.
Right. Yeah.
You're being sucked into that vacuum.
Right,
Right? Okay. Behaviour. And notice I said behaviour or chemicals. The thing that forms addiction in the brain is what has helped us as a human race progress. It's crudely known as the reward centre of the brain, and that's when we learn, it triggers off that.
Okay.
So without it, as a human race, we wouldn't have evolved. Right? And it's despite the adverse outcomes. When you're using your whole budget, when you're losing jobs, when you're losing relationships, when your health is going down and you're on the edge of dying, and if you keep going, your tolerance goes up and up and up and up until one day you will be dead.
Right.
Or your health will suffer. But that's anybody who's an addict is living a diminished life. There's a lot of things that they're unable to do. For instance, we'll take the alcohol because that's a common one that everybody knows. Yeah?
Yeah.
When people start to develop drinking problems, it might start as anxiety. So I have a bit of Dutch courage. Then 1 or 2 drinks doesn't become enough. And then you start avoiding situations where you can't use drugs, which you'll find with most drug cultures, they don't sit there and hang out at the groups that are sitting there not engaging in those behaviours. Because like attracts like.
Yeah.
We know this.
Yeah.
And if you're not comfortable among those groups, that's where it can be a problem. Which is, like I was sharing with you before, there's two main parts of addiction.
Yep.
It's easy to get rid of the chemical hooks.
Right.
Yes, it does seem initially hard, but they quite often fade very quickly.
Okay.
But then learning to rebuild your life
Okay.
and having different... you say you've been in a network where you've lost all your friends who engaged in one behaviour, and if you go back there, you're going to be going back to that behaviour. You need to start in a large way again, and you need to find other things to fill in your time, and you need to start rebuilding your life.
So do you find they go back to the comfort zone of either the people or the environment because it's all they know, and it's almost sometimes more scary to go outside of that environment or those people because you don't know? It's like your fear of the unknown is bigger than the fear of staying in.
It can be, but okay, it's like, how much hurt do you want to have? How much fear are you... It's the fear. When you've got somebody who's been there, who can guide you past, because quite often it's been made a lot bigger in your head, and those things that you don't know, how do you know what you don't know? They call it a scotoma with your eye. You don't know that you've got a blind spot.
Yep.
So you've got no awareness of that till somebody can show you something different.
Right.
That's why understanding the guilt, the shame, the pain, being scared shitless because you've had this chemical crutch. And the way I see it is quite often when you deal with the underlying problem, it's like if you've had a broken leg and it heals, you don't continue to use your crutches. Right. Because it makes no sense.
Okay, yeah.
Because that way, by creating a reality that is better than what you're leaving behind, it encourages the individual to move forward.
Wow.
Right? And a lot of that is building the new thing and helping them through the fear and helping them when you've been down this dark tunnel. And there's one saying that I really love that Winston Churchill shared, and it was, when you're going through hell, don't stop there, keep going.
That's a good one, yeah. And do you think that's the problem, is they're going through hell and they stop there, effectively? That's what's happening to them.
Yes, or they don't have any awareness of what else is a possibility.
Right.
What if I change? They might get a bit of a hope or a glimmer of it.
Yeah.
But they believe, they've got this, oh shit, I can't do this, right? And when you're stuck in that behaviour, that's what you'll attract, because the behaviours will keep going and help perpetuate that.
Wow. So is behaviour something you focus on with your work?
It's values, thoughts, behaviours, because they're interlinked. It's not just like there's one level.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, quite often I look at what's below the surface.
Absolutely.
That they don't have an awareness of, and how to create an awareness so they can form new behaviours which are going to support getting them beyond where they currently are and show them how much better it can be.
Right. So it's like building a vision for the future, building that something to look forward to.
I help them pour the slab.
Right. Okay, constructing, yeah.
Yes, we construct a solid base.
Right.
And then when the wind's blowing, I'm next to them, bracing them.
Right, gotcha.
So it's not, okay, here, come to therapy for an hour, we're going to pick a scab off and leave the wound open. That's not how it works. No way.
Yeah.
This is actually a journey.
And so you give your clients, they have the one-on-one session, or they're there with you, or Zoom, or however you do it, and then there's phone support afterwards, obviously, because these guys are going through a lot and they can't just, here's your one session, see you later, out the door.
That's not how
it doesn't work that way.
No, and I won't do that, because at one time when I was going through therapy, 1 hour, and they're looking at their clock. Look, yes, I do have to work to a time, but I create a framework, whereas I don't sit there and push the person, then pull out the safety net and say, okay, see ya. No, that's not cool. This is about supporting the person through the journey, supporting the individual, right? And this is where we have a lot of problems with our current model. Our current model, lock them up and throw away the key, is based on largely a model that started in 1914 in America under the Harrison Act, which was when heroin was actually freely available, and it was more of a racial thing against the Chinese who were smoking opium.
Right.
Right? These in America they poison their own people with alcohol. Imagine, okay, many of you out there would like a drink. Imagine if your next drink, you didn't know if the dose was 5% or 55%. So potency and dose and different things that, whether that could take your life or you might enjoy a party, big difference. That's why I'm also there for, I agree with pill testing. Look, there's been different things which are not the most popular opinions, even when I had politicians asking me about my opinion in relation to shooting galleries.
Right, okay.
Which had happened with Jeff Kennett and Braxy.
Right, okay. So what's your situation on that? So if anyone who's watching from overseas, or they're people that were the premier of our state, which is like the governor. Yeah, so. Okay.
Well, I agreed with it because at the time we had a lot of blood-borne illness. It wasn't just HIV, it was also hepatitis B. And where people want to demonise addicts, they're a part of a community. And trying to segregate them and push them into a corner, they still may be having... Imagine they had an intimate relationship with somebody who you loved. What if they can get a consistent supply, clean syringes, so there's going to be less blood-borne illness going to our broader community, and where the history is behind these shooting galleries that a lot of people don't realise is it started where there was places, rooms where prostitutes, quite often where prostitutes worked, and you could hire the room short term, right? And if the person didn't come out, people would go in looking for them. So it was saving lives from people because...
So that's where the idea came from for a shooting room. So
initially, yes.
Right.
And you go back, at one stage there was people who were priests and other people who were actually handing out fit packs, they used to call them, but syringes, swabs, to be able to stop infections. Right. And at one stage, our government was going to put these people who were actually handing these out around King's Cross, they were going to use the law against them. In effect, they saved a lot of us millions of dollars in our health system because we didn't have this outbreak of HIV and also Hep B and other things in our community.
I sort of also, I've never really had the language to unpack all of this and all the experience, but some people I've heard talk about how injecting rooms and why are we paying for injecting rooms or the pill testing, and I was like, yeah, but hang on, what if it was your son or your daughter that took the pill because they were just exploring and then they OD'd or they got a disease or something?
I'll answer that very quickly. Yeah. People want to believe that it happens somewhere else.
Yeah, I
don't want it to happen at my door.
Yeah, it's fine.
Until somebody in their family dies and then there's a human face to it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the dehumanisation that we do in our brains to things that we don't have an experience with or don't have any feeling towards. So it's just...
And they don't want to believe that maybe their son or daughter went to a dance party and had an experiment once.
Yeah.
Well, no, which is probably not a great deal different if you want to think about it. The choice of drugs are different, but the kid at 16 years old who gets drunk in the park.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not a big step, is it?
No, but people want to believe that it's such a huge step.
Yeah, but it's not. And it's actually all around. Like I know the 20-year-old bracket of people, having a drink and having some illicit drugs it's just normal. And it's like, it's just...
A lot of kids will choose the illicit drugs because they're far cheaper. They're a lot more easily accessible than parents want to believe.
That would scare a lot of parents out there. Yeah.
That's the reality of it, right? The reality is, okay, they're sitting there and going, all this drug crime. There's 5 to 10% of the drug crime they've shown statistically happens by people who are affected on the drugs. And this is not including alcohol. Alcohol puts the figures through the roof.
Yeah,
but that's legal, that's okay.
Yeah, and that's big numbers too,
but what I'll say is that a great majority of it happens as a result of people, when somebody goes into jail, other people fight for the territory because there's a lot of money involved in this business.
It's a gap in the market.
nature abhors a vacuum.
Yeah, yeah.
If there's money and somebody is moved out, there's going to be competition for it.
Yeah, and then that causes conflict, and there's serious consequences for that conflict.
Yeah, and there's a lot of violence, and quite often these people will choose to be ruthless because it's either kill or be killed in that game, or they'll be chewed up.
Yeah, yeah. So so do you have any sort of stories, or maybe share your story about that transition to you're in that stuck in that space, you're stuck in that culture, you've got all of those issues, and now you're transitioning, you've made the decision, like what's that pathway look like to get out and get to that place where you're clean, whatever the terminology is, you're in a healthy space, you're not using anymore. What's the strategy of the path of getting from free to addicted to free?
Well, people have laughed when I've said it's as simple as A, B, C, and they go, simple. Well, the first step is accepting you've got a problem, because prior to that you're in denial. Right?
Yeah.
And you can make up all the stories under the sun. I'm fine, it doesn't affect me. You know what? Why are you taking the drugs if it doesn't affect you really? Right?
Yeah. Clearly it affects you, yeah.
Yeah. And then it's break the habit. It is actually, you've got to separate, there's a point, although you can't see it, between you're either going to continue once you've accepted, I'm going to own it and accept I'm going to continue, and I'll end up dead sooner than what I probably could have and have a diminished lifestyle.
Yep.
Or a lot of my money is going to, instead of spending it on nice holidays and houses and whatever their value system is, I'm going to put it down my arm or up my nose or smoke it up or drink it and piss it down the drain.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's like, I'm going to change. But then you've got to find a big enough reason to change. Because if it's not big enough, and you're not passionate about it, you don't actually ignite that fire.
Yeah.
Look, it's one thing starting with a small flame, but you've got to build this hell bonfire because you're burning your bridge.
Yeah.
You're burning that bridge. You're at that fork in the road.
Yeah.
You try and go both ways, you're going to tear yourself in two.
Right.
And if you try and run forward, when you've got an anchor around your neck, you're going to rip your head off.
Wow. So you mentioned one of your reasons in that fork in the road was because of you had a little one on the way. So that was your emotional firebomb that I'm out.
I did believe I had a little one. Yeah. Whether the lady terminated or not, I'm unsure.
Sure.
But there was a couple of things, and I sort of started to climb out. I didn't have the support I would have wanted.
Of course, yeah.
I had people who thought they knew, and some of them had the best intentions. But as sometimes the best intentions can go a bit waylaid. Look, people can sit there and, oh, poor you. No, it wasn't poor me. I created this. Yes, I did have an issue, but I had to get real with myself.
Yeah.
Saying poor me or giving me money to buy cigarettes because I didn't have enough because I'd used it all on drugs was enabling my behaviour.
So you've got to let someone go through some pain to let them go through the discomfort of not getting what they need.
Well,
is that the idea?
The fact is they're going to go through some discomfort on the way out, but it's a short-term pain for the long-term gain. Otherwise, they can stay stuck in the pain long-term. Yeah. And it's just going to keep going. It's going to grow. It's going to grow the problem, and it's not going to go away. So
becoming comfortably uncomfortable, stuck, because no one's really giving you a hard time. If you're not getting cigarettes or anything else from other people, then yeah, you can stay there.
I dealt drugs to support my habits, right? Because when you get to a point where I'm either going to feed my drug habit, and it's not a disease. Some people go, oh, it's a disease. They want to use that because it's easier than saying, oh, I've got a mental problem or I'm morally corrupt, which was some of the old things. It's not a disease. It isn't a disease. It doesn't fit any of the frameworks of a disease. It doesn't have a pathological element. It doesn't have an element which is going to be degenerative. Oh, it does, but it's not a DNA thing. It's not born into you.
I sort of find that that seems to be an ego statement that people make. Oh, it's a disease, like I know something. It's like, okay, where did you get that from? You know what I mean? Like people like to put themselves on a soapbox and say these things, but that's not actually helpful. If it helped, that'd be great, but it doesn't help and it's not true.
What it is a way that makes it easier rather than facing the facts.
Right. Okay, so that's the real deal. We're avoiding by saying things like that.
Yeah.
Avoiding the reality. Wow, that's powerful. So it's you've probably got lots of clients who have gone on that transition from, you know, fully in the system, and then they've made a decision, and then they've lifted themselves up. So they've got clean. So you must have some good stories that come from that maybe they've shared with each other, and then as a result, is that what's the reason that you don't have a website? Is that sort of the reason for that?
Well, okay, there's two reasons.
Yeah.
Up until now, look, I haven't had the technical skills to do it.
Yep.
And what I'm good at is working with clients.
Yeah.
I'm good at getting results. That's what I know I'm great at.
That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
Am I stubborn? Yes. Am I also sometimes the one who will call them on their bullshit?
Mm-hmm.
Bloody oath, because everybody else is going, oh, poor you.
Yeah, that's not actually helpful when you need some strong leadership. You know?
Sometimes I do call it tough love. As I said, I'm not the fluff, I'm the one who gets results. If you want to go to the fluff, don't come and see me.
Right.
Because I'll get real with you, I'll cut through the bullshit, and if you want to stay alive and have a quality of life beyond this, I will show you.
Right.
And most of them were word of mouth, right?
So it's word of mouth marketing versus
Yes,
internet.
well, if you think about it this way, how many times have you seen, say, for instance, a restaurant that's been advertised 20 times, and you go, oh, I wonder what that's like. And then one of your mates goes, that restaurant's great. And you go, oh, yeah, I'm going to go there because you value that person's opinion.
Yeah, good comparison, yeah.
Right? That's what I'm more inclined to go to.
Right.
And the same thing is, when they go, oh, like my nickname's Egg. Oh, Egg doesn't around. He calls you on your shit, and he's real. Suddenly that has a different value to them. And yes, I do have a Facebook page, but most of it is word of mouth.
Right.
And I'm starting to get a bit more on the professional side, as some people put it. But my real burn, like, can you imagine this? One day I was walking down the street. Excuse me. This guy grabbed me by the arm. And at first I was about to swing because I didn't know what was going on. Somebody just grabbed me and caught me off guard. And then I turned around, turned the back, and I'm like, wait. I want to introduce you to my girlfriend. I didn't realise that she was doing a drug deal around the corner. But he introduced me as the person who saved his life.
Wow, that's powerful.
The time before I'd seen him, his neck was going septic from a wound and it was close to his jugular. This guy, beautiful. Has he had some things stacked up against him? Bloody oath.
Wow.
But, you know, there's still people and they're doing what they need to get by. Some people go to a job because that's what they see as their reality.
Yeah.
It's a different reality, and trying to understand it from somebody who's never experienced it, as I said, the textbook learner, you can learn so much from models and textbooks, but if you haven't gone through the guilt, the shame, and sitting there and putting yourself in harm's way to be able to survive each day, you don't get it. You can't.
No.
It's like trying to explain colour to a blind person.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. So it's, that's, now I'm sort of thinking about the family. So you talked about, you know, this guy wanting to introduce you to his girlfriend because you'd saved his life, and obviously all of this has a big impact on families. And I know it's probably a deep rabbit hole, but is there any kind of starting point that a family, if they can see their family's gone down, like a son or a husband or someone's gone down that addiction space, what can they do to help them move on?
Well, the start is, okay, and I can appreciate that parents are scared that the kids are going to end up dead. But by sitting there and buying things for them and saying, oh yeah, but I want to keep them under my doors, doesn't matter whether your kid dies under your roof or out on the street.
Wow.
If you're only helping feed the habit.
Yeah.
Because that might ease your conscience, but it's not going to change the end game. That's the reality of it. And if you're being played by somebody who you love, you need to draw boundaries for yourself too, and call them on their behaviour. Because otherwise you're only playing into their game, and your help can keep them stuck.
So is there any resources that can help someone get the right language or the right approach? Or, I mean,
you know what I'd say? You don't want to sit there and try and learn how to act like an addict when you're not. Because you'll be called on your bullshit.
Yeah.
You'll be called on your bullshit.
So really calling their bullshit is the key. So
you have a right to draw a boundary, and it's like,
and look after yourself.
Yeah, underneath my roof, this doesn't happen. You can ask them to be honest. You may not get the honest answer. But if money's going missing, if things are going out of the house, if suddenly the behaviour's going and there's track marks on their arm, or their skins are welded, or their teeth are getting chipped, and then suddenly you're finding ice pipes in the house, when are you going to get real with yourself? You can be in denial for so long, and then there's a wake-up call.
Yeah, it can be pretty brutal, whatever that wake-up call is, whether it's someone visiting the house with bad intent from one of the drug dealers, or just the fact that they fall down.
People will come to collect.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to let them fall, and fall bloody hard. Land on their face, and until they're willing to accept, okay, this is a problem, I want to change, you can't do it for them. Otherwise, if you could, why is there a problem?
Yeah, I've heard some stories of people that have, the reason why they started back on the path is because their family said no more after trying to support them for years, and they've pulled away, and they've either gone deep in or they've got out.
Yeah, well, if they're getting played, okay, for instance, okay, I'll give you an example. You can sit there and go, poor so-and-so. Okay, yeah, poor so-and-so who had this problem. Yes, they've got a problem, but not acknowledging the problem and the behaviours. You don't have to accept somebody's shit behaviour. And
that's, I think, a lot of people do. That's, we're too nice.
Yeah, because they're afraid, and they're getting a payoff too, because they're scared that their kid's going to die or their kid's going to get locked up. Guess what? If they stay there long enough, it's going to happen anyway.
It's like they're trapped. Like everybody's trapped. The family's trapped. The child, or let's call it a son in this case, is trapped in the drug addict space, and nobody's able to sort of get out of it. So something's going to snap at some point.
Well, something's got to give, otherwise it's keeping the framework in place. Until you change something. Listen, you don't make a chocolate cake when you get the ingredients out for a roast. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
People that want to have all, but they're not willing to change it all.
Right.
And you need to step away, and sometimes you need to let them slam hard.
Right.
When they can't come back because that door's closed, and they may kick in your front door because they're angry. That's the reality of it. But whether they're going to punch out the walls or sit there and smash mum's head against the wall, or trying to get money out of they've got drug-induced schizophrenia and they're going to pinch the money out of the purse.
How do you handle that situation? But I guess the thing is to be honest earlier and be more conscious earlier, as far as if you're a family.
Yeah, otherwise you're growing a problem.
Otherwise the problem gets worse and you're part of it.
Yeah, you're helping perpetuate it and you're growing a problem.
As opposed to giving them their own safe little space for them to hide in. So it's it's a massive issue, and I'm sure there's a lot of families out there going through that right now, and they're all looking for answers. So that's why it's so great to have you on the show, to show you people what's possible and the sort of thinking that goes on. That's the thing. When you've got one certain mindset, they're not going to understand. So it's about...
And they're going to test. Look, that's a part of it, because when somebody doesn't like themselves or believe in themselves, chances are they're going to test, right?
Test the boundaries.
And it's easy to go. It's actually scary to go beyond what has become safe, right? If you're sitting there being told to jump and somebody's not sitting there helping you or guiding you through, and it's dark, it's dangerous. When somebody's been there and gone, no, how about you come this way, because if you go that way, what's going to happen? And they can start asking the right questions rather than going, oh, Johnny, poor Johnny, here, have some money, Johnny. No, that might ease your conscience short term if you're the parent, but in reality, is it going to help you when you're burying the kid?
Right.
And I don't think our current legal system is helping it either. When you look at models such as the Portuguese model, it's about supporting people and reintegrating them back into all of our community. Right? Whereas we put people away, and it helps whoever owns the prison, right? And when somebody's an addict who's had trauma, they're used to having things taken away from them. So it's like, oh well.
Just more of the same,
Yeah, it's not so bad. And then quite often you can network with some interesting characters who might be able to help. Once you get out, once you're angry and you want to have your drugs again, your tolerance is gone, and we just did a business networking meeting for the last 5 years in Her Majesty's prison.
Yeah, it's not exactly. So I mean, it seems to me that the whole point of a system is to try and get people back into society, not put them into a prison, and then have them go through that whole process.
Ideally, yes, but our system has shown that it's not working. But we continue. We're flogging a dead horse.
Yeah, flogging a dead horse, but it's not going to stop because it's too deeply entrenched.
I believe it can stop.
You're right.
I believe it can stop, and I believe it needs to, because if we continue along the same path, without anything changing, how are we going to get change? It's not working. It's going to get to a point where...
Well, sometimes it's dollars and cents for a government. Like, was it 100,000 to keep an inmate in
I
whatever
can't
it is?
remember what the
It's some
exact
number
figures are.
and per year per inmate, and it's like, surely the government eventually might work out that they'll say, oh, yeah, well, maybe we'll put some money towards these programs, but it just doesn't seem to be a priority for them at this point.
Sometimes having this short-term, very short-sighted vision, right, till the next election isn't working.
Yeah.
We need somebody who's going to actually show some courage and go, okay, this path isn't working. What are we going to do differently to get a different outcome?
Right.
Because you can sit there and lock up people, but okay, the Portuguese model, instead of spending money, because they had bloodborne illness that was going through the roof, so what they did is you were able to get a dose. It was actually a consistent dose. The syringes were clean. So then the broader community weren't affected. There was the criminal element taken out of it. And money was put into rehabilitation. And when people are reintegrated back into the community and like themselves, they're less likely to do harm, aren't they? And these people are working, paying taxes, rather than rotting away in a cell, coming out without any rehabilitation happening.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that all people are ready to change, but I believe a great majority will, when it's a preference to the life they're living.
Right. So really, for the from a government's perspective, it's about the size of the numbers, right? So if you've got big numbers and the numbers improve, then that is a good bottom line for them. So
well, the American model is actually privatised prisons, so okay, that's fine. And then they've got, in effect, they've got slave labour because they do certain jobs for other businesses while they're in there.
Okay.
And we follow a lot of the American model, which...
It all comes down to results, right? If the results aren't working, you've got to shift to something else, and it's a very slow process.
Okay, if it was a business model and it wasn't working, it would have gone broke.
Yeah.
Why are we continuing along this path? What sort of resources do you put into not getting an outcome? We've had it over 100 years to try and make this work.
Yeah.
How about we look at a different way?
So now let's look at what's the difference between someone who uses and someone who abuses? Any kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, the biggest difference I would say is trauma.
Trauma.
Okay. Trauma for everybody is going to be a different thing. Right? And I will also say that micro traumas, so a smaller trauma without somebody being resilient that's gone over again, actually ingrains it and can blow it out.
So what's a micro trauma, for example?
Okay, what somebody may, textbook, it may be seen as a smaller problem, but if the person doesn't have any coping strategies, and they keep going over, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. It's like, okay, imagine you've got a small muscle tear, and you don't have the right things to support around it to help the healing.
Yep.
And then you continue
To use
going on and on and on. Eventually that small tear becomes a large tear,
Right.
which then you become dysfunctional.
Right. Okay.
You don't get...
So starting point trauma might be what? Like
Look,
is it like... Is there
it's like...
Micro.
How long is a piece of string apart from
Right.
twice the distance from the centre to one end?
Yeah, that's right.
It's a pretty broad question.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
as I said, it's individual.
Mm-hmm. But they can be seemingly insignificant things when they're really young, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger in their mind. And as you say, the tear gets bigger. So it'll be something that grows, and it really does become part of their life.
Yeah, well, you can you can try and deny that there's a rock in the shoe,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if you keep walking, eventually, it's going to dig through the sock, it's going to pit into your foot, and then it'll get festered.
Yeah. You've got to tend to it eventually.
Yeah, so are you going to do it when it's smaller,
Mm.
or are you going to do it when it's larger? And I believe when you actually... Prevention is better than cure.
Mm.
That's great, and that is ideal.
Mm.
But teaching sometimes different techniques within the house,
Mm.
in the family unit, within the schools, within our communities,
Mm.
and that means that adults need to step up and learn these techniques too, to be able to support it, and so it can have a ripple effect.
Because so these techniques for managing the mind, against trauma and taking out the negative charge, are that sort of, using techniques like NLP and other different modalities, or is there something else that comes into that?
Look, there's many different techniques,
Right.
and I like the saying, there's many paths to the top of the hill.
Right.
The only person wasting their time is the one who's running around telling everybody else they're on the wrong path. If you
Right.
get the outcome, and it's not leaving the person worse off,
Mm.
I believe that's beneficial. Some people get addicted to religion.
Mm.
Is
Yeah.
it? And if that means that they're not hurting themselves or others,
Mhm.
brilliant.
Mm. Yeah.
It's better than somebody who's potentially going to end up dead. And I can't see religion in a hurry. Okay, most religions, I'll say there's always exceptions, and I am talking in generalisations,
Mhm.
are not going to take a life
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
in our community.
Yeah. Wow. So it's someone who uses versus someone who abuses. So basically, it's a trauma-based issue.
Yeah, it's a strategy. Okay.
It's coping with the trauma,
Yeah.
using the drugs.
Yes, it's a symptom of the problem, because people see addiction as the problem,
Mm.
where it's not. It's symptomatic.
Mm-hmm. Right, got you. So another question I had was, what's a chemical hook exactly? What is that? You sort of went over that a little bit earlier.
Well, chemical hooks, okay. Whether it be cigarettes, whether it be heroin, whether it be something. Okay, once you introduce it to the body,
Mhm.
the body gets used to a certain chemical.
Right.
So to get, we'll call it stimulus.
Yep. Yep.
So I'll make a parallel to a chemical hook. Somebody who goes to the gym,
Okay. Sure.
they might start with the 40 kilos
Mhm. Mhm.
and they're working towards the 100 kilo,
Mhm.
because the 40 kilo doesn't get the same result, because
Right.
you become used to it and you get the muscle memory.
Right.
Okay, with the chemicals, your body gets used to it, so you need more and need to increase to be able to get the same results.
Right.
So, to remove those chemical hooks, quite often they will, depending on the drug, they will change very quickly.
Right.
But after that, there's a part which is the second part of addiction I refer to as the post-acute withdrawal syndrome.
Post-acute withdrawal syndrome. Right. Yep.
So that's where I'm talking about they need to start to learn to live again.
Mm.
There's also the psychological hooks. And the psychological things, and mopping up there is one of the biggest things to ensure that the individual succeeds in their end goal, which is getting clean from the drugs and moving forward into having choices in life.
Right. So the chemical hooks then comes into that post-acute withdrawal syndrome.
Well, that's the second phase.
That's the second phase. So you get the chemical hook at the start, so it's the natural thing that you get from the drug, and then it goes into that.
Yeah, and quite often there's the initial problem that
that it's covering over.
Yeah, the person may have gone to the drugs for the chemical padding.
Right. Chemical padding. Yeah.
Which then they've got to deal with the initial issue.
Right.
Because it doesn't just go away.
Yeah.
It is going to surface again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always there without it being healed. It's just going to just pop up and cause
It's just
drama.
medicating for the pain.
Yeah. So we talked about what advice would you give anyone who's struggling with addiction right now? So with regards to someone's out there, they're looking at this video right now, you're from Addiction Release, what's the very first step? What's the first thing that they need to do if they've made that decision that they want to start moving forward?
The first step is one. Accept that if you knew how to do it, you'd do it. Mm-hmm. Right? Get somebody with help who's ahead, and it can be far easier than what you may currently imagine. Right. Because there's other people who didn't think they could get past it, who have done. And also, I've shown people how to, I've got the tools. You can spend another 20 years, waste a lot of time, waste a lot of money, miss a lot of opportunities, or you can find myself or somebody else to guide you out beyond it.
Right. So that's that. So it's basically they're getting that motivation to move on, and now you've got the skill set, you're talking about skills,
yes.
And now building that skill to figure out how to manage your own state.
Yeah, well, a lot of people may not be aware of when we were talking about state, it's one thing you might want to do something, but if you haven't got the skills or the resources to be able to, I want to fly too, or I want to get from here, this point A to point B, what do I need to get there? Mm-hmm. What are the tools? If you don't know what the tools are, how are you going to get there? Sure. You don't go from one side of the room to the other in one step, you're flat face. Right. You break it into small manageable steps. Right. And having somebody who can go, but what if you went right instead of left? Mm-hmm. Could you just bear with me, and what if you get this outcome? Would that be preferable to this? Right. And then they can have the chance to actually make an informed choice rather than sit there and have to walk around bumping, bang, 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 walls coming up against and then beating themselves up and keeping the cycle going. Right. And then it gets overwhelmed, they go, I'm stuck, and then they go back on the drugs again. Right. So it's about you building their confidence and their competence with the skills that you need to get through. You've got a bit of a system with regards to how you do that? Very much. Look, a lot of psychological, dealing with the pain. The chemical hooks, I may deal with other key stakeholders, whether they be doctors, whether they be families, whether they be your loved ones who are going to support you on the journey. Mm-hmm. Because where some people may have the best intentions, there actually can be triggering behaviours. Mm-hmm. Also, I will say that, for instance, somebody who's an alcoholic, if they try and stop straight away, there's actually the withdrawals can be very dangerous and the body craves, and that's alcohol. I'm not talking ice, I'm not talking heroin. Yep. And alcohol was probably one of, it's probably easier to mention the drugs I haven't done rather than the drugs I have done. Right. So that is right. Yep. And because alcohol was the common drug that I could get virtually within, I laughed at one stage. In my area, I looked around one intersection, there was a pub on each corner. Right. At this one intersection, there was 4 pubs. Yep. And then there was a pokies in 2 of them. Yep. And I'm thinking, well, I can't exactly go and get, something a lot harder on every corner. It's actually a bit harder to get. You've got to go looking, whereas you don't have to go looking for alcohol. I could have made a phone call, but... but you don't have to it was in my face constantly, and I went and worked in environments where I could hide my addiction. Right. When I went and worked in and among the music industry, where a lot of the work's being done in pubs, I was getting free alcohol. Yeah. And then I was having a line out the back, and then I was having a pill out there, and then I was running away, and I was bouncing off the walls. But people thought I was a happy individual, and quite often I was crumbling inside and I was scared. Wow. Yeah, so it's, I can imagine in the music industry, I think we mentioned it previously where we've chatted about this, and the whole system, it's like you can hide your addiction of alcohol, for example, because, everybody else is drinking. So it's a culturally acceptable situation. Come on, have one, harden up, be one of the boys. Yeah, all of that. And it's hidden in plain sight. In plain sight. It's not, not down some dark alley or anything like that. You're there, totally accepted by society. Look, sometimes it can be in the dark alley that somebody's got a brown bag, but the thing is, okay, you have it to celebrate, you have it to commiserate. It can be at a first birthday you go there and there's people drinking. right?
Yeah.
And then you go to a wedding, you go to a funeral, you go to a work function. There's alcohol.
You can't escape it. It's everywhere.
In some environments, there is the mirror with lines racked up, or there's pills, or there's options. I'm not going to deny that. And some people will use different justifications. Oh, I'm an artist. What, so you can't do your art without being an addict? No, maybe you're a sensitive person, and that's your way of communicating it. And what if you could do that without the drugs that are going to end up killing you? Because we look at how many artists have died as a result of overdoses.
Yeah, and so in that community it's fine. As soon as they leave that community, it's not accepted. You know.
And quite often in the broader community, they will demonise people because this isn't what I do.
Yeah.
But I'll go home, and it starts with, look, initially it might be, okay, I'm going to start Saturday night, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have something. And then what goes up must come down. So it gets to Sunday and it goes, oh yeah, well, I don't want to come down, I'll just have a bit more. And then it gets to, oh well, I need it on Monday so I can go to work to pay for my habit. And I was a functional addict until I wasn't, and I was homeless, and I was going to a soup kitchen, which I never thought I was going to be on that other side.
So you often wonder, how does someone, when you're walking around the city, say in Melbourne or here in Geelong, and someone's homeless, you ask yourself the question, how did they get there? And they could be your brother, they could be your son, they could be your father.
Well, I knew one guy who was an alcoholic, who was a university lecturer,
right,
who is now homeless and having a battle with a bottle, and his life spiralled when his wife, who he loved immensely, died, and then his daughter was killed in a car crash.
Oh.
So his world was just fractured.
Completely fallen apart.
Yeah, and he didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, so that's how you go back. That's how it happens to anyone. You don't have the psychological tool, and you're by yourself. Your entire community is probably your family because you're busy working, and then the only people you care about are gone.
And that's an intelligent, beautiful individual. Look, I still sometimes talk to him and see him around the street, but he just withdrew. And I mean, this guy has an amazing amount of knowledge. And when he was ready, somebody is there to support him. No doubt, he has a wealth to share with all of us. He is an amazing individual, and there's many other stories like that.
Wow. So, you must have quite a list of stories of people that they seem to be up here in life, they end up down there. And the real trick is, what are the resources available for someone to get back? Like, if they've got to make that decision, and then what are the resources you've got?
Okay, at the moment, people say, we put money into incarceration rather than mental health. What's it done? It hasn't solved the problem. We do need to look at a different approach. And sometimes mental health, it can be short term if you get it early.
Right.
If it is allowed to keep going, it does fester and perpetuate, and it can blow out in different ways. And it's a lot harder to clean up a mess rather than, stop a small leak.
Yeah, of course. It's so it's about finding the resources inside to. The first resource is making that decision, isn't it? You've got to make that decision so that you end up in your office to getting the help from you.
We are making some progression. However, I would love to see it happening on a massive scale.
Yeah, of course.
Far blown out. This, okay, whether it be just act like a man, suck it up, have a cup of concrete, to being able to talk about emotions, and that's okay until the guy's sat there, sucked it up, he's lost his kids, he's lost his family, ends up hanging from a rope because he was beaten up by his partner who had issues she hadn't addressed, and then when the cops come around, they don't believe it, and because of the stigma of not being a man, he may not even report it, and then when they break up, she makes up stories and he can't have the kids, and then he hangs from a rope. That's the reality of it. A lot of the time it ends up that if we don't stop it, it's going to end up in premature death.
So I know there's a lot of men's sheds, and there's an organisation called Menergy, and there's another one, all sorts of men's kind of meet-up groups and things like that, where men can actually start to speak up about their issues, about what's going on, because society, we're actually taught that you're not a man if you cry, if you're showing emotion of any sort. And when you've got a big problem like that, you need to share it. And the only avenue is really probably a psychologist or something like that.
If you bottle it,
Yeah.
you crack.
Yeah. That's
The
right.
vessel's only so large and it can hold so much in.
Yeah.
Then it actually takes energy to push it down.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy. And eventually, if it's not addressed, it needs to be addressed because it's not just going to go away on its own.
Yeah, of course.
You can sit there and pretend it's not there, but like I said, you can pretend the rock in your shoe's not there.
Yeah.
And you can keep walking,
Yeah.
but eventually you're going to have to address it. Do you want to address it now or later? And this is what I'm talking about as our broader community. It's all of us, not just us and them. It's all of us.
Yeah.
Because we're all paying for it if it isn't addressed.
So it's that dehumanisation again, where we look at an outside group, we don't see them as people, we see them as things, and therefore we can put hatred and all sorts of things on it.
They're individuals with a problem.
Yeah.
Individuals.
Yeah.
And then you might put those individuals down as collective groups, those junkies,
Yeah.
those users.
Yeah.
But then Friday night you go to the pub and you're with your bunch of users going, and that's okay. No. Sometimes there's people within your group who are probably hiding as well, and they may end up dead if they keep going.
Yeah. And so how can addiction release help clients move forward? What's sort of your philosophy?
In which way?
So with regards to someone comes to you, or if someone's going to come to you, and they've got these, perhaps it's alcohol, and they're looking to move forward and they're going to come to you, what's the sort of first step with you?
Well, first step is I get them clear on where they actually want to be instead, on what their reasons are.
Yep.
And then there's, depending on the individual, there's a myriad of techniques that I use because, as one of my friends said, he said, you seem to be addicted to study. Which, to
Good
me,
problem to have.
yeah, well, it's a preference to where I was. And also, the reason I do it is because I need to learn the skills to be able to best help the people who are coming to me who might be going, this is my last chance.
Wow.
Right? And that's a responsibility. Am I there to save everybody? Am I for everybody? No.
Right.
I'm there to help people who are willing to change and cut the bullshit,
Yeah.
get real with themselves,
Yeah.
who are scared, and I will help support them out and beyond it and show them how they actually can get back on their feet, and if there's challenges, remove some of those hurdles, right? If there's things that they've got questions about, talk to them. Some of their underlying beliefs, which they may not even be aware of, which is keeping them locked in the cycle, teaching them how to change that. If there's conflicts, if there's past things which still hold power over them,
Right.
changing the emotional charge to them, right? Also working after a while because the energy stores in the body in different ways, right?
Yeah.
We're energetic beings. I know this might sound a bit hippie, but okay, if energy can't be created or destroyed, merely transformed, how about we transform it for a better outcome?
So you'd probably spend a fair bit of time trying to help them go through into the past and clearing some of that trauma.
Yeah, there's like the past and the present need to be, it's like two lines that have been worked along.
Right.
So you're taking blockage until it gets to a point where they actually feel uniform and together.
Yeah. Do you find there's any resistance with them facing up to some of the past trauma? Because there's a lot of, that's the whole reason they're in this space, is because they've got all this trauma and they're trying to run from it. And do you sort of, it's not a direct facing up to that original trauma, or is it, what's that look like?
Okay, depending on the individual, right? Because as I said, they're not just addicts. They're individuals who have addiction issues.
Okay, right.
And they're not their behaviour, they are individuals.
Yeah.
Right? Which that's a very big difference. Like if a kid is chucking a tantrum, you don't call them the tantrum, do you?
Right, yeah.
It's a need that's being met.
Right.
Why are they doing the behaviour? They're doing it because it gets an outcome that's desirable. A lot of it is also meeting perspectives and points that the drug may have done,
Right.
or you remove the need to be able to address that.
Right. So it's, yeah, you really are, it's a real struggle, but you've got to sort of, as you say, you're dealing with the present and the past at the same time.
When you say a struggle, it can be,
Yeah.
and it's a lot harder doing it on your own. It's not the load that breaks us down.
Right.
When you learn how to carry it differently,
Right.
right, that can make a world of difference.
So you have clients who have like an aha moment and they realise that maybe they've taken one of the maps of the world off, their life where there were certain should statements where I should be doing this and I should be doing that, and they get rid of something, or they have an aha moment where they realise they can cope differently. Like any examples like that?
And it can end up in laughter, it can end up in tears,
Right.
it can end up, some of these moments are pivotal. When you get somebody who you thought may have been dead, if they kept going down that path, showing you their beautiful new baby,
Oh, wow.
and these people were just glowing
Yeah.
when previously they were yellow and jaundiced and they were grey in other ways. It's like you start to go, yes, people can be helped, and when you see it and experience it, it's something else.
So this feels like that this is meeting your purpose. This is somehow really resonating with your purpose to help those people. It's like your past is fueling an amazing future.
Oh, well, at one stage I was that person who was the piece of shit.
Right.
I was that addict. I was that scum. Right? And some people didn't like me, and you know where some of the most negative self-talk came from? I was in my own head.
Wow, yeah.
And it was because of shit that I didn't want to deal with, and I didn't know how to handle.
Right, yeah.
I had to learn new skills, and those skills, it was actually interesting. At one stage, it's almost funny when I think about it in an abstract way.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I was a drug dealer, and people who were coming to score drugs off me when I made my way out of the path started to come and score therapy. Right? How did you do it? And then some of the friends were bringing friends, and it was getting a different impact. Rather than need drugs just to get out of it, we actually wanted to be a part of it and be back in it.
Right, back in it.
Back in life.
Right.
And
Back in life, right.
Yeah, live, just
Yeah.
rather than just exist and and be wasted.
Yeah. So it must feel good, well, you've already mentioned, to take someone who's yellow and jaundiced and then take them to a place where they're able to cope well enough with life to look after a baby. I mean, that's an incredible transformation.
I don't take them, I work with them.
Right.
It's not my job to sit there and make somebody wrong.
Right.
And please get that. It's a team effort. Yes, I have the tools, right?
But it's their energy.
Oh, and sometimes doing the right tweaks, the right questions to ask for them to come up with the answers, because they know themselves better than anybody else. If I sit there being condescending, looking down on somebody, that is crap, because that's making it about me, and that's not leaving a space for them, and that is, I'm in it for the wrong reasons. If it's about just being for my validation, it's about supporting somebody else beyond it and showing them that they can be so much better and have so many more choices. And look, they're not broken, they just need to learn to refine it to get a better outcome. They never were broken.
Right.
Some of these people, oh, I'm broken. No. And there was a thing that I mentioned to somebody in Japan with the ceramics. There's a thing called kintsugi, and where the cracks are, they fill it with gold, making it unique and stronger than it was before. And I see it like that.
Right. Wow, so in the cracks we're filling it with gold, making it more valuable than it was before.
Well, the learnings that they've got are so much, they're unique. Those individuals have experiences that nobody else has. They've got an important part to play in the jigsaw puzzle that we all are. And they're a different shape, they're a different fit, and they're still okay. Those people are okay. They're not shit. They never were shit, despite what somebody may have said to them and fed into their mind. They were lied to, right? Okay, yes, they may have made poor choices and mistakes, but they're still beautiful people, and they have a right to shine too.
Wow, that's emotional, isn't it? So your story really adds to that authenticity to be able to get through to them, because you've been there, you've done that, and you know the path out, and that's why you can probably talk to them, because you're not talking down to them, you're not talking to them like they're a piece of shit or anything like that. You are helping them with a guiding hand to their place.
I'm supporting.
You're supporting them. And it's their energy they've got to bring to the table, so the no BS filter, but you are lifting them with that authentic story.
And sometimes when somebody calls them on their bullshit,
it's exactly what they need.
it's like a sign. You see someone go,
right.
It's like a relief that somebody's finally called them, and it's like, well, you're being honest with me. You're being honest with me, and other people have just been nice to me.
Yeah. So it's like, because they're no longer playing the nice game, or you're not playing the nice game and everybody else has, finally I can let go of this bullshit story, this bullshit game we all play where we all dance around in a circle. You've broken that. And so now...
Yeah, the game's changed.
The game's changed.
Those rules have been shifted.
Yeah.
Okay, the game's changed. What are you going to do differently now? How are we going to play it?
Isn't it amazing what we do in our own heads when we all agree on a certain system? And then we play the game and wonder why we're not getting anywhere. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, a lot of people can sit there and try and run away. And this is with addiction. A lot of us have tried to run away and run away and run away. And then we get tired and turn around and our ass has followed us.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this is what I've got to deal with. This is who I am. How can I get... You've got a certain amount of resources.
Yeah.
And the aim is to get the most you can with those resources. So if you can get more with less, rather than fight against yourself, isn't that the ultimate goal?
Yeah, I've heard some amazing things in... So, an amazing interview with so many insights into addiction release coaching and your story, which is powerful. That authentic story, I think, is what really gets through to people. Knowing that those people at the fork in the road who have actually made a decision to lift themselves up, that those people they've got a resource in you, and knowing that you'll work with them and not talk down to them. I think that's the real challenge with a lot of professional help, is that they'll look down on someone and not work with them. So
the person who's looking down doesn't understand that individual, and that's coming from a power position.
That's right.
When it's shared and it's collective power working together, that's when the healing starts, rather than... A lot of people are being forced. Force creates friction. Right? And when somebody's been given an opportunity, an offer, they can choose to take the offer or not. And it doesn't make them better or worse.
Yeah.
It just, if this isn't working, what do you want to do differently? And the thing is, it can be, rather than sit there and go around in cycles, like quite often I spent many years looking out in the distance for answers. When I ended up empty, bitter, scared, I looked down and realised the answers were laid at my feet, but I was looking straight over the top of them. And sometimes for somebody to be able to go, look, it can be this much easier. How about you look at this? What if you do this? A, B, C, D, E. And then what we'll do, I'll sit with you and I'll help you carry the blocks so we can make the pieces fit together.
Yeah. It seems your authentic story means you've also got the language. You know, with your clients, when they're talking BS, you know the excuses, and so you can help them get over that part.
And yeah, a lot of the time I also understand that they're scared. If somebody wants to piss down my back and tell me it's raining, I'm going to call them on it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because it's wasting valuable resources. Because I'll help them, and I'll help them, and I'll help them. And quite often, I'll sit there chipping through that wall so they can actually see the other side. I'll let them see that how they can learn to believe in themselves again. And they will start to feel different when somebody's helping them carry their bags. And then it's like, okay, what if you empty this? We'll unpack this. This isn't working. Okay, this works, and this works. The bag's a lot lighter. How about we get a backpack instead of one strap and you're hanging it off your shoulder as you're trying to hold your arm in it?
Yeah. So it's that, you knowing that there's a shared responsibility, there's a shared load. You're taking some of the weight for them enough until they're strong enough to take the weight themselves.
Well, when you think about life, it has if as a part of it. which is possibility.
Yeah.
If.
Right. So
What if we did something differently?
Right. It's a powerful question. And I think we are often stuck in the shallow thinking where we're not thinking about, we're stuck in the loop of the current thoughts that we've been handed, and we're never asking a better question like, what if? The what if frame is powerful.
And when you're in a dark hole, in a space where you're scared, your perspective isn't going to be that great because you can't see what's going on once you get up above and around. And somebody who's got a different perspective, who is above it, can go, yeah, what about we put the net in there? Here's the rope. Now grab my hand. Now I've got the torch. We're going to walk this path. And then when you get to the next part, because life isn't going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Anybody who thinks that, suddenly I'll overcome my addiction and life's going to be perfect, no. Crap.
Yeah.
Life is up and down. And I see that like a heart rate monitor. If it's up and down, that's okay. When it's flatlined, you're either dead, right?
Yeah.
Or you're in real trouble. And it doesn't mean that you're going to have a lot of problems to deal with because who knows what happens after this game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so it's like getting out of that shallow thinking and asking different questions. And it just expands the mind. And that's where you've got the vision, because you can see, you've got the vision to see, and they don't. They're sort of in a dark place. And so you're shining the light, I think you mentioned before, on the path out.
Look, I applaud the families who do support the people who have addiction issues.
Yeah.
Because when they're at your loved one, you can see that they're a person, not just their addiction. And there is pros and cons. What I'll say is somebody who's not emotionally invested can separate it, right?
Yeah.
And have I lost people who I've loved? Yeah. Do I know people who have ended up in psych wards because of certain amounts of drugs and various other things? Yes. Have I been to lots of funerals until I couldn't cry and I stopped going to them? Yes. And if that means if one other person doesn't have to experience that pain and their loved one can have a productive life and contribute to all of our community, what a beautiful thing to be a part of.
Is that something that fuels you to help people? Is like,
Yeah.
you don't want those people to have to keep going through that misery of all those funerals and can't cry anymore, all of that suffering.
Well, I know what my experience is of it, and most definitely, would I wish that on somebody? No. Did I make some crap choices? Yes. Did I sit there and go, it's not my fault, I'm a victim? I've talked so much shit in my time that I could have been a fertiliser factory, right? At one stage, I was talking a lot of shit until I got honest with myself and was real. Nothing was going to change. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking with you now.
Yeah.
I know this for a fact because the way I was going, not great. And there were injuries. As I said, I shared a bit of the story before. But it's almost like as I get further and further away, the experience stays, but it's like watching a movie of somebody else's life. I'll tell you what, my life is great. I wouldn't say it's blessed. Some days I struggle, but you know what? My feet hit the floor in the morning. I've been given a bonus round. What choices am I going to make to get the results?
Because you value the other side. You value the positive side. You were there and now you value this, so therefore you're grateful for where you're at.
And somebody who's currently going, I can't, I'll say, crap. It's how can you? How can you? Right? When you start looking at the problem, you can magnify the problem, or if you want to look at it differently and you go, okay, what am I a bigger part of? What can I help? What can I take control of now? And it's not trying to do everything at once because, okay, you may have taken a long while to get down this path. Who knows how many years, and it's going to depend on you. At the same time, it won't happen overnight. There will be some short-term pain. But do you want to stay in the long-term pain and feed into the habit and make it worse until, you know, you say, I should have done it earlier. I guess only you can answer that.
Yeah, wow. So, wow, really emotional, really important message for everybody out there is Leigh's work with addiction release coaching. Knowing that Leigh can come and help you, your organisation, he can do one-on-ones, you're a public speaker and a mentor, and obviously with the one-on-one sessions with coaching.
Where I'm training too.
And training people as well. So now you're training people in the addiction space and coaching space. So
sometimes it's the addiction space, sometimes it's also transferable learning, which, because people have different things which are obstacles, that I can show them how to remove those to get better outcomes.
Right, fantastic. Well, amazing today. Thank you so much for coming down, Leigh. So how do people get in touch with you? What's the best, apart from word of mouth?
Okay.
We've got word of mouth via our videos here today.
Well, I can be contacted on Facebook, or my phone number is 0412 30 20 30. That's 0412 302 030, or addiction release coaching at Gmail, and eventually I think I might get a website because I'm told they're professional and stuff.
And stuff. It's the end stuff we need. So, an amazing interview today. Thank you so much, Leigh, for coming along.
Thank you for
appreciate it. Come all the way from Frankston down to Geelong to have an interview with me today, so thank you so much. We're blessed to have you.
If I can move from Dandenong to Frankston for a quieter way of life, I can come for a beautiful trip on the train to Geelong.
It's amazing.
Thank you
Thank you so much, and anyone who needs any more details, I'll put some connections, some links, etc. On next to this video in my channel, Fork in the Road on YouTube, and also we'll find a place for Leigh to put it and make sure all the links are quickly accessible for everybody. So if you're at a fork in the road with alcohol, with drugs, you're stuck, Leigh is an option forward. He is that decision point, that fork in the road to a higher place. He's an amazing, amazing person. Thank you so much.
Maybe not the higher place.
Higher place.
When we're talking about drugs.
Oh, sorry, not a higher place. I'll take that back.
How about we go to a place that's better rather than
A better
higher
place, a place of light. That's what it is.
More choices.
More choices. More choices. So we've got more choices in life as opposed to the loops you're in right now. So I hope you enjoy this video. We'll release it to everybody so everyone can watch it. And I hope it helps somebody out there and they find you at Addiction Release Coaching on Facebook, on the phone numbers, the websites, the emails. We'll put them all on there. Thank you so much, Leigh.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thanks very much.